So this is my slide to say that this is definitely not an HR approved presentation, but of course we are an equal opportunity employer, and really my secrets are mostly in jest, and that of course we don't discriminate on anything besides bad design. So I wanted to go through three things: your intro, email, and application, very important, which is in your foot in the door. Your resume, make it pretty and clear. And finally, your portfolio and your interview, which is really your time to shine. So starting with your intro, email, and application. Some people like to say the cover letter is dead. Some people like to say the cover letter is back. Personally, I don't have time to read a cover letter. If you send it to me, great, but I would love just a quick little email, even if you do include it, that really hits the top points. I don't expect that everybody who's applying is going to spend 2 hours writing me a letter. And I don't need that personally. So really just that intro email, getting your foot in the door, is more important for me. Secret number one, you've really only, in my inbox, I really only spend about 10 seconds with each email. Is it spam? Is it someone trying to sell me something? Is it somebody looking for a job? Is it something related to work? So really, you got to get attention fast. So my deal breakers are the wrong, for example, wrong name. If they're sending me something and they address it to somebody else, if they address it, they're sending it to me, but it's a different agency's name. Really make sure. I think when it happens is when students or prospective employees are sending out to multiple people and they're just copying, pasting, and they're not really spending the time to make sure, like, okay, who is this person? What is the agency? Personally, I'd recommend maybe not doing it all at once. Maybe, send 2 a day or something. Anything you need to do to make sure you don't do a silly mistake like that, because it will make the person just not look at it. Misspellings, kind of same thing. I have a unique name. I know that, but I do think spending the time to make sure the person you're sending to, you've looked them up, you know their name, you're spelling it right, is super important. Also, if it's uninspired or vague, what I mean by this is you're kind of just like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Like, seems like you have a job. Like, be specific. Don't, I want to know why. What are you asking me for? What do you want? And if there's no company or personal connection, like I said, I don't expect everyone to be spend hours writing me a cover letter, but definitely want to know that you're sending this specifically to me. So what's the big question? Is who you are coming through fast. So what does work? And this is just for me, a well thought out brief intro email. The 4 points that I would recommend you hit are who you are, what you're passionate about or great at, why you want to work here specifically, and then connect all of the above, which is your value add. It's been a really long time since I've applied for a job, but when I did apply here, who I am, I'm from Michigan. I just moved to town. This is the school I went to. This is and then what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about design. I'm passionate about branding. Why I want to work here. Back then, it was because I looked up the Jacksonville Business Journal and looked up the top agencies, and I felt like Brunet-García had the best design, and I said that. I think it would probably be a different reason today. But then connect all the above. What am I going to do for you? I'd love to, mention a project that you like, the copy that you think is great, a brand that you think is great, and mention, something maybe, that why it appealed to you and what you would bring to the agency or the business that you're applying to. So moving on to your resume, making it pretty and clear. And the reason I say that is because 75% of resumes might not even get read. So why is that? If I open it up and it is a Word document, I'm not even gonna open it because we're talking about designers here. We don't deal in Word documents. My husband is an engineer. He would say the opposite. If somebody sent him a PDF, it's not going to get read because it's not a Word document. But I think in our industry, it needs to be not a Word document. The other thing I see a lot is if somebody is linking out to the resume and it's a broken link, or they want to, it's password protected and they're making me type in a bunch of things, I'm probably going to move on. If you open it and what I'm calling like a visual assault, if it's just crazy, it's colors, it's patterns, it's pictures, like this is an informational document about you, and that should be the first thing that we see. Personally, I really don't like the skill percentage thing. It looks to me like a template. But honestly, this is the kind of one I could take it or leave it. If you do it well, sure. I would just say, don't put something you're bad at on it. Like I've seen one that are like, micro or Photoshop 20%. Like, don't put that on there because then I know you don't think that you're good at it. Then you don't think you're good at Photoshop. If you're misaligned bullets or other basics, I actually see this quite a lot. If you're applying for a job where you're going to be laying out documents and the layout isn't done properly, definitely a problem. Or too long or irrelevant info. Sometimes we see people put, they worked on a farm when they were 12 or something like that. Cut it down to the things that matter. And when I say that, I don't mean, if you want to put like restaurant jobs, it doesn't have to be applicable to design. It just needs to be applicable to you as a person that you are now and skills that might be applicable to the job. So is it something that represents your skills, both the words and the design? So a well-designed, restrained resume. I know a lot of schools do personal branding, and I've seen it be really great, and I'm not opposed to it at all. I would just say that if it's taking over your resume or if it's too complicated, if you're presenting yourself as a brand when you apply, the brand should really represent your design. So I personally would prefer, a simple name to a brand that's so complicated I can't even read your name. But again, I've seen it done well lots of times. Definitely not opposed to using a brand. I think it can be really great. But do consider fonts, icons, if you're using them, proportions, negative space, all those things, because we're really looking, when I open it up, we're really looking at a resume as a whole. Think of it as like a design project, a page in a catalog or something that you're designing. Yes, it's about you, but it's also representative of your design. So I would recommend, for example, giving a friend 30 seconds to read it. What can they take away? Is it organized in a way that you can easily see, oh, this person had 4 jobs. This is the type of work they do. This is their experience, that kind of thing. And so also relevant content that is organized and edited. So like I said, removing old jobs that are irrelevant or don't add to your story. Highlighting your value adds, languages that you speak, that you've worked for a photographer, anything you think that is going to add value to you as an employee. I personally prefer 1 page, 2 pages is fine. But I would say a PDF or a link to a PDF or a website would be what I personally prefer. And then number 4, including easy ways to access more information. I say that because I remember several times somebody put their name with like 3 spaces between each letter, or their URL. I had a bunch of spaces in it. And so I couldn't just copy it, and it wouldn't link. And I couldn't copy it. And so I was just sitting there like typing in their letters on their URL, and it was just difficult to get to their information. So do everything that you can to make it easy for the person who's opening it to get to the information they need. And then, seems obvious, but have it proofed. So your portfolio and interview, time to shine. I put these together because sometimes your portfolio is sent ahead of time and sometimes it's reviewed together, but typically we'll be walking through your portfolio if you were to be interviewed. And I think it really is the key to getting that interview. So secret number 3, we're not really looking at your work. So what are we looking at then? In reality, the work that you have in your portfolio is great for showing us what you can do and what you're passionate about, but in day-to-day, you're going to be working with a team, you're going to be working on different stuff. So really we're looking at like other elements of your work. So taste, technical, thinking, and tone. There's actually a 5th, which is team, which I will get to. So when I say taste, does what you're showing me make sense? And of course, make me happy. So good taste comes with the design territory. I personally would recommend you're editing down to your best work. Less can be more. I was thinking I was going to try to come up with a magical number and I can't. But I mean, I've seen people who just present 4 or 5 things and they're great and that's fine. It's definitely better than showing me 30 and, 10 of them are irrelevant. I'd say the magic number is up to you, but definitely want to think about making it your best and work that makes sense for the job you're applying for. So, pencil sketches from 7 years ago, I mean, might be interesting, but not necessarily relevant. Highlight fundamental skills like color combinations or hierarchy. Definitely be thinking about those things when you're thinking about the work that you're going to present. When we're looking at work, we're like, oh, wow, that person had really great color combinations, or I love their use of fonts. We're looking at like the little stuff across the board. And also think about the things that make up your work. So like the mock-up that you chose, or even if you're choosing a stock photo for something, looking at that kind of ability to choose elements is something that is really important to us. But I want to make sure it's clear, good taste doesn't mean the person's taste who's interviewing you. We're always looking for diverse perspectives, and don't be afraid to go crazy and be wild. That, of course, is part of what we're looking for. So just wanted to make that note. So technical, do you have the skills that we need, or can you learn? So really the best skill is ability to learn new skills. So it's great, if you know this or that, but really showing the openness to learn new skills and to be able to pick up things fast. The things that you can do are making sure your portfolio is accessible and modern. Like I said, it's been with COVID and everything, I actually don't see a lot of physical portfolios, although I wouldn't be opposed. Typically, what I see these days is people coming in with an iPad if they're physically in the office, or presenting me a web page or a virtual PDF. But just making sure when we receive it or you're presenting it, it feels modern. It doesn't, if that's what you're going for, of course, if the idea is that it's really tactile, of course, that wouldn't apply. But making sure you're highlighting your best skills throughout. If you have branding projects, but you wanted to show you're a great illustrator, for example, you could draw a little illustration to open each section. Just thinking, or if you're great at copywriting, maybe writing a line or 2 for each of your projects. And making sure when you're going through your projects to mention your role in the project, not excessively, but we'll always ask, oh, did you do this or that? And sometimes, if somebody did the photography themselves, the writing themselves, and they just forgot to mention it. But giving credit to people is also great. We've interviewed people and we're like, wow, they were really respectful of their co-collaborators. That was great to hear about that. And then just showing off within reason, meaning showing what you're great at. If you want to highlight your photography, it's kind of what I was saying with number 2. So you're thinking, are you able to create and adapt? This is where you really want to reveal your magic trick. So this is really thinking about your process and how you get to the final product, because really the journey is more important than the destination. So I put to highlight your thought process in some way. I don't really care how that is. I've seen people kind of talk briefly about the process on each project. Sometimes it's nice when they just take one project and they're like, I'm really going to dive into my process on this. So this is where it started. This is where it went. This is how I did it. And here's the finished product. If that's happening, I probably want to see the finished product at the beginning and then kind of backtrack and see how they got there. So yeah, explaining the why. Why did you do something? Why did you choose this? And self-generated projects are okay. If you want to have a project where you're really talking about what you love. So why did you choose this? What are you passionate about? How did you get there? So making sure your passion comes through. And I hope we're doing okay on time. This is the last one. Tone. How do you talk about your work? Because we're taking notes. Because it's not always about the content, it's about your tone. So this is when it's more about the interview, when you're talking about your work. I know it can be hard when you're nervous or this is the first time you've done it, but anything you can do, doing yoga before or taking a walk, that to really let yourself be yourself as much as you can, because you don't want to work somewhere where it's not a good match and they can't really tell, and you can't really tell unless you're being yourself. I remember at my last interview, the interview for this, they told me afterwards, they're like, wow, you were really, really formal. We thought you were like not going to be a good fit at all. Luckily, I had another opportunity to kind of change their mind there, but it doesn't do you any good to not be yourself. So I would say, if you can, aim for being professional and prepared, but ready to adapt, casual, flexible. And confidence is really important, but making sure you're not rambling on and on and on without checking in with the people that you're interviewing with, because that has happened before where it's like an hour and we haven't really had a chance to like ask any of the questions we really wanted to ask. So checking in, but also not letting silence scare you, because sometimes we're just taking the work in and we don't really have any questions, or we're going to ask you later. And sometimes people can panic, but try not to do that. So last insider's tip. When we have a job posting, we might have 50 people applying or 100 people, like that. It's happened before, it was 100. So we're making a spreadsheet and we're putting, your name, your URL, your resume, if we can link to it, and then a note or two, great design, great personality, or loved her illustration, loved his photography, might be a good fit. So like, I think that thinking about yourself, like, what am I really going to be boiled down to? And I know that could be hard, but what story do you want to tell to the people that you're showing yourself to? And finally, if you don't hear back, or hiring managers and creative directors aren't mean, they're just busy. So if you don't hear anything, checking back is more than fine. Checking back 5 or 6 times, probably not okay. But they might have just missed the email. Specifically if you were applying to a posted job. But a good trick might be to, for example, say, hey, like, could I meet with you just to discuss the market or something, versus like, I'm looking for a job. Are you ready to hire me? Because like a lot of the time that's not necessarily going to happen right away. Or checking back in, hey, it's been 6 months. Like, here's my updated resume. If you have something that you're writing to check back in on, even better. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Aerien. Really insightful, really helpful. Just so everybody knows, we will be doing a Q&A session at the end. So if you can hold your questions until Kim is done with her chance to present, or feel free to drop them throughout in the chat throughout the presentations, and we can make sure we read them out at the end as well. But with that, thank you again, Aerien. Really, really helpful. Have a lot of questions at the end. I'm so excited about that. And then Kim, we're ready to pass it over to you.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and share. I would like to start by thanking Aerien for covering it all, because she certainly did. And just to go over a few things, I was taking some notes as she talked, because I do think it's important to highlight. I agree with her on the amount of work in the portfolio, and I'll get into some of that. But in particular, I don't think there is a magic number. It is more like, wow, here's a comprehensive campaign, and they've really shown how that would, flow into various tactics. So to her point, seeing 12 or 15 things, that's not the magic number as much as it is, feeling like, wow, this person has some powerful work in their book. The process as well, I feel like that is something that once you can see some work, and then the next page might be, and let me just talk you through some of my thinking on this, that would help us understand, how you think, which is just as important as anything else. And then the self-generated projects, I couldn't agree more. If you don't feel like you're getting the kind of work in school that you need, just by all means, think up some things that you can do on your own and knock it out. So now I'm going to back up and start at the beginning. My name is Kim Tippin. I do work at Guidewell, which is the parent company for Florida Blue and many of their other health companies. I started on the agency side at Dalton. It's funny, I was in high school and I had a graphic design class, which I did not really know what that was. I always liked art, but had a graphic design class. Robin Shepard was nice enough to come and speak to our class and sort of explain what you would do at an agency. And I thought, that is exactly what I would love to do. And so that really helped me figure that out. Went to college, and like they said, the AIJ event was one where I interviewed with one guy who really liked some of the thinking in my book, and that propelled me to being a grunt there, when there were probably 7 people at the company, and I stayed for 20 years. They were a wonderful family. So with that, let me move right along. Okay. Just want to reemphasize, Aerien had discussed this a little bit. I think thinking about this entire process as, okay, I'm a designer. What is this? You really do need to think of it in terms of being the brand. And what does that mean? I don't mean it from a visual standpoint so much, but figuring out what makes you special. What are the skills, the qualities, and the experiences that completely encapsulate who you are. And once you have that on paper, then you can think about every touch point along the way as being part of that seamless communication coming from you. It will all feel and look alike. And again, you will recognize that as being from you. I think everything that you do should position you to tell that story, relaying the feelings of competency and an understanding of the craft. I do think it's super important to use a consistent voice everywhere all the time, in addition to the things that she mentioned as far as, let's make sure that our spelling is good, and all of those things. It's just so important that come across, and that can be done through tone. If you are a person who has a good sense of humor, it can be clever, it can be witty, it can be thoughtful. It should be you. That personality should come across. As Aerien said, it's something where if you had one soundbite, you would sum up, oh, remember, she was the one that ... that it should be that expressive that people can recall and remember, because it's unique and it's different and you have a point of view. Moving on to the resume, there are just, I'm stunned, and I think more now being on the corporate side, how many resumes come in exactly as we talked about. They are Word documents. It is so frightening, and we'll get to that as well. But I think understanding, we understand as students, you're not going to have as much life experience. So you're going to have to be thoughtful about what did I do at each job that I might have had that would be applicable, whether that's I was a great team leader or I was able to work on some design things, and giving a nod to all of that. And doing it in a way that is thoughtful, short, concise, easy to scan. It has stopping power, and it does have a look and a feel that, again, highlights that brand that you're going to have the consistent look and feel throughout. And with that, I talk about, let's not be confused as a banker. You should not be able to line your resume, anything that you're doing, and have it be like, well, maybe that person's applying to be an accountant at our company. If you're a designer, this is your project. Think of it as your final exam. This should feel special. It should have a look and a feel that is, again, unique and expresses your skill set. If that is that you are a great illustrator, that you have those sorts of things. And that's the Doberman. Zeus, come here. Apologize. Come here, buddy. All right. As mentioned, the idea of using a template, we see so many things where you could line up 3 of them and they're so similar. And you guys, we go to school for this, you train for it, you have a unique point of view. So let that shine through on the resume, in addition to expressing your skill set, what you're good at, your work history, all of those things. It really should be unique. It should be something that you're proud of and that stands out from anyone else's because it's yours. So just a simple recap here. You want to customize for the job. You spend the time to kind of highlight if things ebb up to the top because it is going to be more of a digital position, or it's something, that they are going to be looking for someone who has a lot of video experience. Whatever that is, you want to make sure that you're just adjusting it as much as needed to make sure that you're presenting yourself in the best light. With that, you want to showcase your best work, making sure that you have those links that are taking you to the website or the portfolio, that, again, you would pick them per job to make sure that it's really expressing who you are. You want to highlight your skills, making sure that you're calling out the things that you are good at, using the keywords so that it is searchable. More and more big companies are doing that. So if you're applying for something, you want to make sure that you have everything listed that would be in your job description. The proofread and edit. I am a terrible, terrible speller. It is surprising to me how often I will have something wrong. And so I always have friends QA my work and make sure that it's good. And then tell the truth. You don't have to be all things to all people. Know what you're good at and be honest about what you'd like to learn more of. And people will respect you for doing that, for sure. Okay. I had to slide this in as a little pause in between because I think this is important for all people. The average American will spend about 90,000 hours working. So perhaps now is a good time to get lost. I feel like we are all on this trajectory of we go to school and then it's what are you going to do next? And you've got to get the great internship so you can land the great job. I would just suggest to you all, as one gets older, the regrets list grows. And I would say one of my biggest was I had an opportunity to study abroad. And at the time I just thought, how am I ever going to pay for that? And again, that is a real worry, but when am I ever going to have 9 or 12 weeks of my life where I can just go, I'm going to go to Florence and I'm going to do whatever, and I'm going to soak it up, and I'm going to have these smart people teaching me things and giving me access to museums and all of that. So I would just suggest to you all, as you're thinking jobs and what I'm going to do, like, take a breath. If you can, think about, it doesn't have to be a long trip, but, just think about giving yourself some space to, congratulate yourself and figure out what you're going to do next and see some of the world. I think there are so many things that can be inspiring, and that will affect your design and your outlook and what you have to contribute to wherever you do end up working. So I'm going to get off my high horse now and move back to the next slide. show and tell the world with a smart portfolio. I can tell you that 100 years ago when I graduated, I had my portfolio, which it was probably could barely fit in my car. It was so big, and it had the massive pages that you would flip and insert. And that's clearly changed. I know there has been some questions about, does it need to be a real portfolio or one that is digital? I don't mind either one. I think that for me as a person, I would be so nervous. And I've sat in a few interviews where, for whatever reason, technology did not work and we couldn't get to their stuff, or they were having glitches. So for your peace of mind, it might be nice to have a pretty printed book that you can just say, hey, here are these things, and kind of help it along in that way. But either way, it's, again, such a great extension and the encapsulation of this is me as a person and all of the work that I have. The portfolio really should answer the question, who are you? And that is something that is such a big project, and to start thinking about, okay, who am I? What kind of company do I think I want to work at? What kind of work do I love to do the best? Is it mainly print? Am I a really excited person to work on digital with social and all of those things? And really narrowing that down and thinking about that will help you then focus the portfolio into highlighting the pieces that will allow you to present those to people and get the kind of work that you want. This one, what's your big idea? And I inserted smart because I don't think it has to be a life-changing idea, but how do you approach a problem differently? How do you come up with a solution that's unexpected? How do you work on something, in a way that is very different within a category than something we've seen before? Again, I think Aerien summed it up so nicely. What's that one thing that people in the office are going to be like, yeah, I remember her. She's the girl that did that thing. There can be one thing that people talk about, because the project is so different or successful in a way that you just weren't expecting. And I think that's so important. So as a summary here for portfolio, lead with your best work. Have one piece that when you open the book, it is something where it just sets the expectation and really makes people notice you and your abilities. I think one thing to think about is, again, if you're dropping off a portfolio, which doesn't happen as much, we at Florida Blue have been work from home since COVID and remain 100% at home. So for me, I'd be looking at a digital book unless you were nice enough to mail me something. So I think including case studies and in a very concise way that is easy to scan and read, but for a person, let's say, who doesn't have the benefit of you walking them through it, have it be a super easy scannable experience so that we understand, again, what part did you have in it? What was the problem? What was your solution? And then if there was actually something that you can say and it worked, we tried it and got this result, that would be even better. Understandable. If you're in school, sometimes you're not going to have those sorts of results to promote, but it would be nice. Showcase your special skills. If you have gotten really into photography and you have the ability to do that, just anything additional that you can share would be ideal. You want to tailor it for the audience, as we've discussed. Keeping the content fresh would, and by that, it could be every 6 months. As you are young and you're doing more things, you're going to have new content. So rotate in the good. Have people look at it and identify what they think the least great piece in there is. And then that would be the one to replace first, obviously. And make it memorable. There should be a spirit to it of entertainment, the way it's organized and presented where people recall it. And then we go on to the interview. I've been married a long time, so I haven't had to online date, but I feel like it would be a lot like this, where you are trying to identify, where do I want to work? Where might I want to live? Is where I want to live more important than, the type of place? Then you think about, do I want to be at an agency? If so, do I want to be at a smaller one where my contributions will be noticed and I can really get in there and get my hands dirty? Do I want to go to the more of the corporate side of things? You know, it's a different experience, but a good one as well. So just trying to figure out what makes the most sense for you and asking those tough questions. You know, some of these will be you identifying potential places you want to work. Others will be obviously Indeed and other things where you're just looking at postings and you're trying to figure out, you know, by doing the math, do we think this is a good company? You know, going and talking to people who might know and looking online, really figuring it out, because you don't want to get stuck with the wrong partner. You know, it's terrible to start off that way and then feel like, wow, I don't think I've made the right decision. But you can always get another job. So there's that. Okay, so I start with beware the unicorn. And I think this is so important for you guys to hear from someone on the other side, because I read them and just laugh. Like, if you see a listing that says should be a good designer, writer, social media manager who can come up, you know, and then show all the data points for that, on and on and on, doing budgets, etc. That's probably not a place you want to work unless you are some kind of amazing magical savant. One person can't do all of those things, and they are setting themselves up. They just would like probably to pay less money and to think like, oh, you get one design type person, they come in and they handle it all. You want to be on a team. You want to be on a team who appreciates you and what you can do and plug into them and together come up with great stuff. So just please avoid those if you can. You know, and then understand the assignment. You're going to go to a company, you need to know as much about them as you can. If you happen to know the people who are going to be interviewing you, do some research on them as well. Understand how long they've been with the company. You know, what work have they produced? Some of that is very easy to find with the internet, so that you go in and you're ready to roll. You will feel more comfortable for sure being able to discuss them. They're going to have questions for you and you're going to have questions for them. So just be ready all the way around. And I just think this is huge. You know, again, it is nerve-wracking. You're going to be a version of yourself, but probably not your whole self. Like, you know, if you are a nut and a comedian, that may not shine through all the way, but really listen to your instinct and your intuition when you're in there. You may think, you know, this is going to be where you spend most of your waking hours with these people, working on projects, trying to come up with things together. So as you're in there, you're allowed to ask questions of them to find out how they seem to work together. Is there banter? Do they seem to genuinely care about each other? You know, I don't think work is like a family. I mean, I care deeply about the people I work with, but more than that, you want to have different types of people on a team. They should be thinking about how you fit into their world. You know, you don't want all introverts or extroverts. You need people who respond differently in situations. So considering that chemistry is super important, just as much for you as it is for them. And then make a real impression in real life. I can't tell you guys, if you really want a job and you feel like the interview went well, you can send a real card that goes in the mail that someone can hold in their hands. If you really want the job, and I'm not saying this will get you the job, but you know, I would treat this like a business pitch. So afterwards, if you want to send them cookies and have that packaged in exactly the same way that your resume and your book look, so it's just an extension again of you, do that, or come up with something clever, send them postcards, like just do something that sets you apart from other people and makes a standout sort of feeling for people. So recapping the interview, arrive early, whether that's virtually or not, you know, be on time, have your research done as much as you can, be yourself, share portfolio insights. You talking them through it is, as said, as important as what's in there, so that they understand that you're able to articulate those thoughts. And they will say, do you have any questions for us? So have that prepared. You want to have some questions and make it stuff that you actually care about, you know, have good questions and then send that thank you. And then lastly, I just think as designers, no matter where you are in your career, stay curious, do things that have nothing to, hobbies that you enjoy that have nothing to do with design, visit places where you can't read the language and absorb that, like whatever it is that will make you stay interested in life will always make you a better designer. I think having that outside, all of those influences can just, it's like a layer cake, and it will just help you tremendously in your career to stay sane and to be able to, it blows my mind that we've all chosen to do a career where literally every week you have to show up and you have to do something, it is performance. So I think anything you can do to give back to yourself and make sure that you're nurturing your interests and your curiosities will just benefit you tremendously. And with that, I have a thank you. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Thank you so much, Kim. Yeah, thank you to you and Aerien. Both were so insightful. I've been in the industry for a few years myself, and I learned a lot and would have loved to have all of this back when I was graduating and interviewing. Would have been so helpful. So we are going to open it up to questions now. Feel free to come off mute, or if you want to show your camera and ask a question. Aerien and Kim, you guys can kind of decide who wants to take what. Also, everyone, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. But Aerien and Kim are here to answer anything you might have as you're prepping your portfolios or resumes, or switching the job fields.
Okay, so one question came. Do you recommend having two resume layouts? One for things like easy apply that are being filtered through a system, and one that is more stylized to send to someone directly. And I have had trouble when sending a stylized resume through a filtering AI system. And we were covering this before. Yeah, so what do you guys think?
I would 100% recommend having both. I know it's extra work and that can be a pain, especially if you're doing updates, but for the people who are not going to be seeing it through a filtered system, again, going back to having something that just looks like a Word document is frightening. So I would definitely do both.
Yeah, exactly. If you're sending it to, like we both said, a design manager or anybody in the design field who's assessing that, they need to see the PDF. And if you're applying through LinkedIn, or if it's going to an HR person, even any sort of system, yeah, you just need to, it can be the same copy, just export it to Word and make it raw text or something. Yeah.
Just put at the bottom, this is only ugly because they made me do it.
Hi, everyone. I have a question. First of all, thank you, Kim and Aerien, for the wonderful talks and presentation. I think I was in New York for a while and recently moved down to Jacksonville in December. And I think I went to school in St. Louis, and I saw kind of the small, mid creative city energy there. And I was getting kind of a similar vibe from Jacksonville, but so I think I wanted to know, what is both the sort of creative culture in the city, as well as the sort of hybrid or in-person or remote working? Like, are most people back in the offices all the time? Are most people remote, or is it kind of a hybrid situation?
Yeah, Brunet-García is only back officially 1 day a week. So we're just back on Wednesdays, and we do remote the rest of the week with people coming in as they prefer. I think it's about, what would you say, guys? I think other agencies, I'd say 50-50. Some of them are just 1 day a month. Some of them are a couple days a week. And I'm not sure if anyone has gone full back.
I think Dalton's pretty much full time. They may have like 1 day a week, but they're pretty in person. She's right.
But yeah, I think that the vibe is probably similar to what you're talking about. There's lots of little small independent shops, and quite a few of these mid-size agencies.
Mm-hmm. And Brandon, I would add to that, it's interesting because, again, starting and working for so many years in a city the size of Jacksonville, and now working with FCB, who are in New York, you know, huge. It makes me more impressed with the work that comes out of small shops or medium size in a town like Jacksonville, because I think people just are so hungry for the business and trying to come up with creative solutions to problems that, you know, they should be very proud of the work that's coming out of them for sure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate those answers.
Sure, and welcome to town.
Thank you.
More questions?
I
Anybody?
would say though, along that, like, I feel like people jump around less. I feel like people are really loyal to their shops here. Where, I mean, versus, and I don't know how it was where you were, but I feel like if you were living in New York, you know, might feel a little bit more like you could jump around and like the bridges aren't being confused.
I think that's fair. And it's one of those where at that point, when you're considering a move, you think, okay, you know what that life is like. So living it at another shop in Jax would be a little different. So.
Okay. So we have Michelle. She's asking, she's in the end of her junior year, and she wanted to start applying for internships for the summer. She's thinking, like, would my resume portfolio still look as if I was trying to find a job, or would it be more like a in-work resume, like something as a process?
Yeah, I think as a student, you don't have to have a book and everything else that looks like you are ready to go out there and win the world. You know, you want it as good as it can be, but you know, if I'm looking, I was intern coordinator at Dalton for years, and you know, you look at it through a different lens of, okay, there's sparks of ideas, there's things we can push, et cetera, to get that where we'll, you know, be better and better and better. And then I can only say this a million times, like an internship can be anything you want to make it, as long as you're willing to show up and work hard, and when they don't have something for you to do, to work on your own things and to get feedback and to figure out again how to push those things to be as good as they can be.
So what she's also asking, what is considered to be a good internship opportunity for a student? And especially now with the internships being, I mean, it's remote too. Like in the past, they would have the experience of being in client meetings and have an understanding of what is being in an office. What do you consider to be a good internship opportunity?
I think that point is a really valid one. As I sit here thinking about that, you know, at Florida Blue, we've had internships in the past, but that was when we were working at, you know, at an office. And so they were able to kind of come in and soak up that culture. Aerien, what are you guys doing for that now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. Yeah, they're working by themselves when it's not that one day a week, which is not ideal at all. But I would say if they were to say, hey, like, can anyone come in 2 more, like Tuesday and Thursday too, I'll be here. Like, then people would accommodate for sure.
Okay. And there is always a question of paid or unpaid internship. So some companies actually pay for their interns, and most of the ad agencies don't, because, you know, it's an honor to be working or intern at the ad agency. Any thoughts about it?
We changed our policy several years ago, and the current policy is that you either have to be getting credit, which is great, or we'll be paying you an intern rate. But I mean, it's definitely paid.
I mean, it does feel like things are going that way for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What about at Guidehouse?
Guidewell, it's
Guidewell, sorry.
It's okay. They are paid internships. And so I think the barrier to entry is a little higher with that, because not only do we have to have a budget for it. So like right now, I don't have a budget for an intern. And going back to the questions, it is challenging for you guys. I recognize that. So would an intern benefit us as much when we are fully remote? Probably not as much, and it wouldn't benefit you either, because you're not going to be, I feel like so much of young life as a young designer, an intern, et cetera, is you soak it up. You're just listening to conversations, you're seeing stuff that comes off the printer, you're looking over someone's shoulder as they design stuff, and it's so important to learning all those things. So if you can find a place where all of that happens in person, that would be my first recommendation. If you have a way where it doesn't have to be paid, then you can apply at all the places. It does feel like most places are going towards some sort of benefit, of not full-time pay, but you're going to get some sort of stipend, et cetera, or you're going to get credit from your school. But if you can do anything that is more in person, it's going to benefit you more, unless you're just very plugged into the right people at a remote opportunity where you're sharing often, raising your hand, showing things for feedback, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would echo that the bar is definitely up in the case that we have to be able to justify payment and find the funding and get it approved and all that. So yeah, if there is a way to get your school to have a formal credit for your internship, that would, at least at our company, that makes life a lot easier. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to happen a lot in design. It seems like the marketing and other areas of the agency that they have those opportunities more.
Yeah, usually they would get the credits if they complete 210 hours or so or per semester, but they still have to pay those 3 credits. So even if it is for credit, so it's going to be even worse, because they not only need to pay for the credit, but they're not getting any stipend.
Yeah,
that becomes a challenge. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. There is one good question here. There are few. So what are your thoughts on applying for jobs that have a minimum number of years of experience that is more than the number of years you currently have? Apply anyway, or?
Listen, nothing bad's going to come of applying for a job that you get a no to. It's practice. So if that means you're sending things out and you're sending that email and you're learning, kind of getting your stride for that, I think it's fine. If they're looking for someone that has 8 years of experience and you have 2, honestly, do you want to get that job and show up on day 1 and completely not know what you're doing? Like that is just not great. Like save that for a little later.
Yeah. Okay. Aerien, do you feel the same?
Yeah, same. I mean, we're really just guessing. Yeah, honestly, in our descriptions, it's like the HR person put some numbers in there that we thought looked good. So if it's about, just do it anyway. I would say you probably have a better chance if it's, not that formal application smart apply thing, because sometimes you will just get cut if you don't have the number of years. But otherwise, it's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. So Justin is asking, what's the industry outlook for designers? Are employers looking for more UI, UX, motion, publication, etc.? Is there a gap that the industry wants to see more coming from young designers?
I mean, in our world, unfortunately, print, I mean, we don't do that much print anymore. Even when we do print, we're just prepping things and we're sending it to our clients to print themselves. So a lot of digital animation, like you said, UI, UX, for sure. But I think if you're either that or you're, more of a generalist with that value add, which both are great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's the best way to represent having multiple responsibilities roles at the company? Should I only focus on the design aspects? I work at a small marketing agency as the only designer, and want to have all the roles represented properly on my resume.
As you should. And if you are dealing with all of that, then figure out, you know, in addition to just being a designer, if you are having to do some project management or other things, you know, highlight that, figure out what skills have you learned, and why not get credit for that? Good for you.
Vanessa, help me out here. I am now the questions are coming.
Okay. There's another question from Ariel. It says, I've seen job applications asking for letters of recommendation or a list of references. What are your thoughts as hiring managers on this, and how much importance these lists are?
I mean, I wouldn't be checking a list of references until they're about to get hired. No one's gonna sit around calling your references until they're ready to pull the trigger. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, if they're asking for them, I mean, like, I would try to have them, even if they're professors or somebody who's senior to you in school. If you don't have any employers, I mean, it could be just somebody. It doesn't need to be design person. They're probably just checking on your character. You know, are they punctual? Are they honest, responsible?
It's interesting to have, again, interviewed people at an agency where a lot of times, you know, it did not come through an official listing of a job. We put out feelers, we found out that someone was looking, or a friend of a friend told people. Then you go to the corporate side and there's this person that's going to screen all of the applicants for you and present. Even then we might get 50, 40 of which are horrible for design. It's mind-blowing, but for those last ones, I'm assuming they check some of those references if they're even required, because that's certainly not something that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Katharina is asking, are creatives that studied at U.S. universities more preferred than creatives that studied abroad? Is it a deal breaker if a creative's native language is not English?
No, I think you need to be a clear communicator, no matter what language you're speaking. If you speak two, hooray, that makes you much smarter than I am, and I would commend that. And, you know, Aerien, you can back me up here. It's really about your thought process, about what your work looks like, about how you're able to speak to it. And I don't care where you went to school.
Same, it doesn't matter. It's the work. And agree, we have several employees that come from universities outside of the US. It doesn't matter.
What are your thoughts on persistence when looking for opportunities? Is it respectful, impressive to drop your resume and talk to someone in person, or is it that considered as invasive? Additionally, what are your thoughts on the timing of follow-up emails?
I would not really want someone to just show up to drop off a resume. That would then require me to not be in a meeting or to be working on something where I could take a pause. Since I work from home, that would mean you're at my front door, which is a little more unusual. But I think, you know, and again, Aerien, you are still in an office on Wednesdays. So if someone stopped by, you know, I don't know if that borders on creepy or if it's just nice to introduce yourself. And to Arien's earlier point, maybe if you were wanting to have a talk and just sort of meet some people, a quick sort of hello thing versus, you know, hey, here's my resume, I'd like a job. You know, those are kind of two different approaches to that.
Yeah, I agree. The old resume, drop the resume at the door is, I think, done. But we had one of the people we recently hired dropped off like a really cool screen printed poster. And it wasn't like, hey, I need to talk to you. It was like, hey, I love your agency. Like, look, this is a gift to you. And I don't even know if we were even there when it got dropped off. It might have gotten mailed. So something physical is fine, but showing up and expecting a interaction at a certain moment unannounced would not be looked on well, I don't think.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question. If this person, okay, so just graduated from in a New York university and is gonna visit Jacksonville for a week, so they send you an email saying, oh, I'm gonna be in town And I was wondering if anybody's going to be at Brunet-García or Guidewell, and would love to share my, I would love to drop my resume, or if you have a chance, I would love to talk to you to see what the opportunities are there.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. You know, someone's asking for an opportunity to have a tour. It can be brief, a hello, we can take the materials, and we, you know, at Dalton, we did that all the time. Jim Dalton, I would see, you know, we were down on the first floor and I would look up and he would be walking people many times and then would bring it down to the creative department if that's who it was. And, you know, we would just talk to them and give them a quick tour, and that the introduction would be made.
Yeah. Well, that is different from, you know, just stop by and ask, you know, expecting that you're going to drop everything. Sure. So if that happened, and I'm just telling you because someone just got hired in Tennessee doing this, and was graduated from here, told she was going to be touring there for a week, and she dropped her resumes in many ad agencies there, and she was, you know, she got few offers right there too.
Right. And I would say if you're going to go through the effort of doing all that, then use all the tips we gave you earlier, which is know where you're going, know who the players are, have questions to ask so that you look like you're informed. You know, don't rely on it to be a Disney tour. It should be something that's very interactive, and certainly narrow it down to prospects that you're seriously considering, you know, as you do your tours.
Thank you. Vanessa, when I take this
Michelle
one.
has another question. She's like, as I'm getting closer to graduating, I'm having a difficult time finding myself, the type of designer I am, and my personal brand. What are some tips that you have for a designer trying to do their personal branding?
Go for it, Aerien.
So, I mean, I think just like, think about, I mean, I think you gotta find your passion, right? Like, think about when was I the happiest? When in the last couple of years? Like, I wouldn't feel the pressure to have a personal brand. If you don't have snazzy personal brand, I think what Kim said about consistent voice and your personality, and like that stuff is all really important. And well, good design, obviously really important. But if you're talking about, you know, designing a logo for your brand, like that, don't stress out about that. Like, a beautifully typeset thing is going to be fine. But I do think finding your passion there, so you can really convey that as you're shopping yourself around, is super important. And to figure out like what kind of jobs you want. I mean, I think that it's important when you approach people to not be like, oh, I'm aimless, I don't know, can you help me? But if you think like, I think I might have a really good passion for this, and you do this, like, could I have 5 minutes of your time? Like that is totally different than saying like, oh, I'm a little confused, I'm aimless. So don't be afraid to do that. But I would say, try to spend some time with yourself. I like to do branding with words. So thinking about themes and concepts and adjectives, and kind of see where that takes you versus trying to start with a visual. But certainly spend some time thinking about what has made you happy, what you feel, not necessarily what is the easiest, because I get the most frustrated when I'm working on branding projects, but it makes me the happiest when I'm done. Mm-hmm. So I would say that.
I agree with all that. And guys, give yourselves a break. Like, if you're just out of college, you don't need to know everything you're going to do for the rest of your life. Like, if I had to show you my portfolio that I had when I finished, it would go in the dumpster and we would all light it on fire together. Like, it's fine. You're going to get better at it. And Aerien, what she said is so true. Like, focus on making every project in your book as beautiful as it can be. Like, just keep pushing it, keep looking refined, and let that be where you put your focus versus like, where's my razzle dazzle, like, woo, you know, it just make everything as good as it and tight as it can be. And that will help you, and it will only get better from there.
So I had a markup on Kim's presentation about asking smart questions in the interview.
Sure.
Can you give us a couple of examples, please?
Okay, we've set it up, right? It's stressful to be in an interview, and we get to the end and we say, so do you guys have any questions for us? And sometimes people will be like, No, I think you've summed it up pretty well, and which is fine. Maybe we are that good at what we're doing that we've explained everything about the company that you'd ever want to know. But I would love it more if you said, hey, I've seen some of the new commercials for the campaign that you guys have. What else can health insurance do? How do you see that playing out in the future? And what do you where do you expect Florida Blue to be headed in the future? Like something that lets me know you're paying attention to what we're doing. You're wondering how you might have a role in that in the future. And you're looking down the road and just letting me know that you've taken the time to look into us enough to care.
Aerien, anything?
Yeah, I would say same. I think in addition to that, people also love talking about themselves. So saying, what's your favorite thing about working here? Or what's your favorite project you've worked on in the last couple of years? Or what kind of work with the person who receives this position, what would they be working on? I mean, thinking, like Kim said, getting to know the person that you're going to be talking to and being able to ask them questions. But I agree with you. I think like the fact that you wouldn't have any questions is a warning sign. Like we're talking, like you said, this is a back and forth. So we need to, obviously we're evaluating each other, but we need to know that you're actually seriously considering us. And it's not realistic to think that you wouldn't have questions about the type of work, the culture. I wouldn't ask any questions about like benefits and stuff like that. That would come later.
Good. Okay. So Brandon says, I work at Trader Joe's for almost a year after college.
Oh, yay. Love that.
Great
place.
experience learning teamwork before agency life after 4 years of being hunched over a desk in school.
That I know that I can only speak for myself. I'm never going to retire because life is life. So that is my retirement plan, is to wear that fun shirt and snack on Trader Joe's food while working. So go Brandon.
So Catherine has a question. What are your thoughts on hiring someone that has had multiple years of experience on the corporate side, only about 6 months in ad agencies, and would like to work on the agency side now?
I'm punting that one right over to you, Aerien.
I don't think that matters. I think that I would they're both great, right, for different reasons. Honestly, the pay is probably better at but I think I would come in to it expressing interest in working on, like, the thing I love about agency life is that you're doing something different every day. And not that you're not doing that in corporate jobs, but like one day it's talking about HIV, one day we're talking about nature, the next day we're talking about education. So I mean, like, you never know what is going to come, and you need to be adaptable and flexible and have a range of skills. So I would just tout that. But just do some research on the type of agency you're trying to apply to, and just, as long as it's true, just make sure it's clear that why their mission matters to you.
And just as an aside note, if I was a young person out of college and I could take one road or the other, I would absolutely do agency first, if at all possible, for the exact reason that Aerien said. You're going to be working on different things. You're going to be exposed to so many, even if you're focused on one account, you're going to see all of the other things that are happening, and you're going to pick up on that. I think corporate's great once you have some of that under your belt, because literally you're going to take your box of 60 crayons and you're going to pick out 5. And now your new challenge is, how do I make things that are fresh and new using, a very specific brand set of things? And so it's a different challenge. I love it, but it is different than starting out and learning how to, hey, I'm going to go on a video shoot this week, and next week I'm going to be watching someone build a website and for a different, client. So it definitely exposes you to more.
So Michelle's asking, should you show or tell employees your passions, interests besides design, so that they see your personality and know a little bit more about yourself?
they should be asking those questions. And if not, I don't think they're much fun to be around. Like you very much want, I want to know if you have a dog and, do you like to cook and what are you bringing to the potluck and all of those things. Like that definitely should be something that you're being asked and that they're also giving you an opportunity to share.
I guess her question is like, when should she say something?
Late in the game, some of it may come out just through your book when you're like, yeah, I love photography and here's a shot of my dog that I used on a Purina ad or something like that. But I think as it winds down, you also want to know, hey, we know what you do or what you would like to do for work, but what else do you enjoy?
So if the first question is not, tell me about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Then you will try to include that.
Try to insert it. But they, hopefully a good back and forth should include a lot of that. People want to understand the whole you and what your passions are.
I would put it on the about page or whatever if you have a website. Because I always click that, oh, they're into music, oh, they love to hike, whatever. I think definitely need to show that. But it can also come through in your book as well. If you're into fashion and do whatever.
Let me see. It got quiet here. Come on, people.
I know. I was like, I think we've run out of questions. I did have one going back to the kind of interview phase, and Aerien, I believe we had one person at one time reach out for like an informational interview, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, and if you think it's effective. Same with Kim, if you've ever had somebody reach out for an informational interview where they're just kind of like, hey, I want to know more about the company. I'm looking for a job. Do you recommend that? Or do you prefer a more traditional form of like applying?
In my experience, it's been either people who are ending a work relationship somewhere, or they are new to town, and it is usually been more of a tour request or want to come by and just kind of meet some people, not so much a sit down, let's pretend it's an interview when it's not. So I think that's great, and if you can reach out and get a foot in the door that way, just to let people know who you are and what you do, you could drop off a leave behind. That'd be good. Aerien, have you had?
Yeah, I can't hate on it because that's how I got this job. I was like, I'm new to town. Can you meet with me? And I love your work. Did it, nothing happened. And then a month or two later, their two designers quit and all of a sudden they needed somebody. So, it can only help. I will say if that happened to me now, I probably would see if somebody else could do it because they don't have time to, but I honestly don't get that many. So if there was a real request and there was honestly something, like you said, I probably would try to help for sure.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything they want to put out there?
Hi, I do have a question. I have a break between college graduation and then trying to enter into agency or something more stable. I have done freelance, but still I feel some sort of disconnection between these 2 years. And I would like to have some insights in how can I approach my my trying to go back to something more stable.
I personally think, especially with this weird COVID climate, no one really cares or is going to ask that many questions about that. Just put freelance, self-employed, as long as that's true, I don't think anybody is going to be too concerned about that.
I don't either. And we have come so, in the years that I've worked where people, again, I stayed for 20 years. So what, but people move around, they do different things. They may not do design for a little while and they try something else and then they return to it. So having 2 years where you've been doing freelance and that sort of thing, it's not a big deal.
Any other questions?
Okay, great. thank you everybody so much for joining us. And thank you again to Aerien and Kim for all of your wonderful insight. So appreciative. If anyone is currently working on their portfolio or about to graduate or switching careers or looking for jobs in the Jacksonville area, definitely check out our upcoming portfolio review event. We'll have representatives from agencies and in-house teams all over the city. They're reviewing portfolios and giving feedback. And this was a great event to kind of help get everybody set up and prepared for that, and make sure you can come with your best looking resume or best looking portfolio. And yeah, thank you so much again, Aerien and Kim and Claudia and Vanessa for organizing this event.
Thank you guys. You did the hard work.
No, thank you. Thank you. For
Really appreciative. This event will be on our YouTube channel and on our website and stuff in a few days. So if you were late to the party, you'll be able to kind of catch up and review, or if you just want to hear it all again, it'll be available for you.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good
Aerien.
night.
Thank you, Kim.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good night.
Thank you. Bye.